Hey Reddit, throwaway account because I really don't want this tied to my main. Some of our friends lurk here. I'm 34M, married to my wife Lena, 31F. We've been together for 8 years, married for 5. Until about 6 months ago, I honestly thought we were solid. We weren't perfect. Who is? But we laughed a lot, had a decent sex life, shared chores, and talked about starting a family soon. Then things started shifting. It wasn't sudden at first. It was gradual, like someone slowly dimming the lights until you're sitting in the dark without realizing it. She got a new job at a marketing firm. More hours, new coworkers, work events. I was proud of her. She'd been wanting to move up in her career, and when she landed this position, I was genuinely happy for her. But pretty quickly, her schedule became erratic. Late nights at the office, emergency client calls, weekend team building hangouts. She started guarding her phone like it was a nuclear launch code. If it buzzed, she'd flip its screen down or grab it immediately. And God forbid I asked who she was texting. She'd roll her eyes and say I was being controlling. I tried to brush it off. I told myself I was just being paranoid, that she deserved trust, that stress can make people distant. But something felt off. The small things started stacking up. New lingerie for herself, a password change on her phone. She said it was because of work confidentiality and this weird perfume I didn't recognize lingering on her clothes. Still, I didn't want to believe it. We'd been through so much together. Moving states, losing her dad, helping my mom recover from cancer. We were partners, or so I thought. I figured maybe we were just going through a rough patch and I'd make an effort to reconnect. I had no idea then that I was already living in the middle of a lie. It was a Thursday night, one of those evenings where you're too tired to cook, so I ordered Thai takeout for the two of us. Lena texted me that she'd be home late. Big client pitch tomorrow, so I figured I'd surprise her with her favorite pad CEW when she got in. Around 10:30 p.m., she still wasn't home. I texted her, "Hey, you okay? You need me to come pick you up?" No reply. At 11:15, I called, straight to voicemail. Now Lena was always glued to her phone, so that alone was weird. I ended up falling asleep on the couch, still waiting for her. She came home at 1:40 a.m., smelling faintly of alcohol and wearing this little black dress I hadn't seen before. When I groggily asked where she'd been, she said, "Babe, I told you." Work thing ran late, then everyone went for drinks. I nodded, but something about her tone, casual, dismissive, rubbed me wrong. I noticed her lipstick was a shade darker than the one she usually wore, and there was a faint smudge near her collarbone. When I pointed it out, she brushed past me, saying it was probably just makeup from hugging one of her coworkers goodbye. The next morning, I saw a charge on our shared credit card for a place called Luna's Bistro. It wasn't near her office. It was a cozy, romantic little restaurant downtown that we used to go to on anniversaries. When I asked her about it, she didn't even hesitate. "Oh yeah," she said, buttering her toast like she was reading a grocery list. We had dinner there with the team before the drinks. Client meeting. I didn't push it, but something in my gut twisted. I'd been in marketing once. I knew client dinners didn't happen at intimate, dimly lit restaurants like Luna's. That's when I decided to stop making excuses for her and start paying attention. About a week after the Luna's Bistro thing, Lena was in the shower one morning when her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally, I wouldn't touch it. I've never been the snoop through your partner's phone guy. But something made me look. Maybe it was that little voice that had been whispering in my head for weeks. Something isn't right. The message preview on the screen read, "Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you." No name, just a heart emoji. My stomach dropped. I didn't even open the message. I just stared at it, hoping I was hallucinating. Then I heard the water turn off in the bathroom, and I panicked. Put the phone back exactly how it was, and sat on the edge of the bed trying to act normal. When she came out wrapped in a towel, humming to herself, I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "Hey, who's texting you this early?" She froze, just for half a second, before her face smoothed over. "Oh, just work. We're doing a campaign with an influencer. He's being annoying." I nodded, but she grabbed her phone a little too fast. Her thumbs moved quick, and she turned away slightly as she typed. Then she looked up at me and smiled. That fake smile, the one people give when they're lying but hoping you won't see it. For the rest of the day, I felt sick. My head kept replaying that text, that damn heart emoji. That night, after she fell asleep, I decided I needed to know the truth. I logged into our cell phone account online, something I'd never done before, and checked her call and text logs. There it was, a number that showed up constantly. Dozens of texts, calls that lasted hours, especially late at night when she claimed to be catching up on work. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type the number into Google. And when I did, my heart sank. It belonged to Evan, her coworker, the one she said was married with 2 kids and super boring. So after seeing Evan's name pop up, I started paying attention to every little thing Lena said. And it was like once I noticed, I couldn't unsee the patterns, the half-truths, the nervous laughter, the way she'd look at her phone and smile, then quickly turn it face down when I walked into the room. I didn't want to go full detective, but at that point I had to know. So I came up with a small test. One Friday, she told me she'd be working late again. Another client pitch, she said. Same excuse as always. Normally, I'd just stay home and wait like an idiot. But this time I said, cool, maybe I'll bring you some dinner at the office. You probably won't have time to grab anything. She froze for a second, fork halfway to her mouth. Then she said, way too fast. Oh no, don't bother. We're ordering food in. My boss is paying for everyone. You'd be bored anyway. That's when I knew. She didn't even try to make it believable. So I waited a couple of hours and then drove to her office building. Her car wasn't there. Neither were most of the lights inside. The place looked empty. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it. I checked the location app we'd both agreed to use ages ago for safety reasons. She'd turned it off. At that point, I wasn't even thinking straight. I called her. Hey, how's work going? I asked, trying to sound casual. She answered immediately. Loud background noise, music, people talking. Busy, busy, she said, fake laugh and all. We're in the middle of a brainstorm. I parked the car and sat there in silence for a minute, realizing she was lying to my face while it was happening. When she got home around midnight, I asked how her meeting went. She said it was productive but exhausting, then went straight to the shower. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at her purse, which she'd tossed on the counter. Her phone was inside, screen lighting up every few minutes with messages from E. The next morning, I couldn't do it anymore. I woke up early, just sat on the edge of the bed watching her sleep, trying to remember the woman I married, the one who used to wake me up with pancakes on Sundays and kiss me before she even brushed her teeth. But all I saw now was someone I didn't recognize. When she finally stirred, I said, "We need to talk." She groaned, pulled the blanket over her head and mumbled, "Can it wait? It's Saturday." "No," I said, "it can't." That got her attention. She sat up, hair a mess, eyes half open, and said, "What's your problem?" "My problem," I said, "is that I know you weren't at work last night." Her face went blank for a split second, just long enough to confirm it. And then she launched into full-on defense mode. "What are you talking about?" "Of course I was. You're seriously going to accuse me of lying because I got home late again? Lena, your car wasn't at the office. I drove by." That's when she snapped. "Oh my God, you followed me? Are you kidding me right now? That's insane. You're acting like a psycho." Classic deflection. But I was past the point of backing down. "Then why did you turn off your location sharing? Why were you getting messages from E all night?" She hesitated, that tiny flicker of panic in her eyes, then scoffed. "Evan, seriously, he's just a coworker. We're friends. You're paranoid." I told her I'd seen the text from him. "Last night was amazing." Her face drained of color, then she smirked. "You went through my phone? Wow, that's such a violation of privacy. No wonder I don't want to talk to you about anything anymore." It was like she flipped a switch, guilt to gaslight in 2 seconds flat, and I just sat there, heart pounding, realizing she wasn't even sorry. She was angry I'd caught her. That's when something inside me broke. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said quietly, "I know you're lying. I just wanted to hear if you'd admit it." She didn't. She just got up, grabbed her phone, and locked herself in the bathroom. I sat there listening to the faint hum of her voice as she whispered into the phone. I didn't need to hear the words to know who she was talking to. She stayed locked in that bathroom for nearly 40 minutes. I could hear the muffled sound of her talking, then silence. Then the shower turning on like that somehow made it all disappear. When she finally came out, she acted like nothing had happened. Hair wet, towel around her shoulders, scrolling through her phone. Are we really doing this? She said, like I was the one being unreasonable. Doing what? I asked. This paranoid husband routine. You've been acting weird for weeks. Maybe if you trusted me, we wouldn't be here. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe how easily the lies came out of her mouth. I trusted you, Lena. I defended you. Even when everything pointed to the opposite, I still gave you the benefit of the doubt. She rolled her eyes. So what now? You want me to beg? Cry? Admit to something that didn't happen? And that's when I snapped. I told her everything. The phone logs, the text, the night at Luna's Bistro, the turned-off location. I laid it all out, calmly, like I was reading a grocery list of betrayal. For a second, she just stood there, eyes darting like she was searching for a story that would stick. Then she said it, the line that burned into my brain forever. Okay, fine. We kissed once. That's it. It didn't mean anything. It was stupid and it's over. Are you happy now? I remember just staring at her. Once, I said. You've been texting him nonstop for months. She crossed her arms, defiant. Because we work together. You have no idea what it's like to actually have a career. You sit behind a computer all day judging me while I'm trying to build something. The jab hit deep. She knew exactly how to cut me, throw my insecurities in my face to make me question my own anger. But this time, it didn't work. Don't turn this around on me, I said. You're sleeping with him, aren't you? She hesitated, just long enough for the truth to hang between us like smoke, and then said coldly, believe whatever you want. And she walked out, just like that, grabbed her keys, slammed the door, and drove off. I didn't chase her. I just stood in the middle of our kitchen, surrounded by all the pieces of our life, the pictures, the mugs, the smell of her shampoo, and realized I was completely, utterly alone. She didn't come home that night. Not a call, not a text, nothing. Just silence. Around 2 a.m., I checked her location again out of pure habit, even though she'd turned it off before. To my surprise, it was on. And guess where it showed she was? A Holiday Inn about 15 minutes from our house. That was the moment my denial finally died. I didn't go there. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But something in me knew I couldn't handle seeing it with my own eyes. Instead, I took screenshots of everything. The call logs, the texts, her location, even the timestamp from the night before. I needed to stop letting her gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. The next morning, she strolled in like she'd just come back from a yoga retreat. Stayed at Kelsey's, she said breezily when I asked where she'd been. I needed some space. I just looked at her. Kelsey lives downtown, I said. Not at the Holiday Inn on Route 9? The color drained from her face. She froze for half a second, then went straight back into performance mode. Oh my God, are you tracking me now? You've completely lost it. This is not normal, you know that? I said nothing, just handed her my phone with the screenshot of her location pulled up. She blinked, jaw tightening, and then she smiled. I guess there's no point lying anymore, she said almost proudly. Yeah, I was with Evan. Happy now? You finally got your proof. She said it like I'd been the one pushing her into it, like I'd forced the truth out of her as some kind of twisted game. I asked her why she'd do this after everything we'd built, everything we'd gone through. Her response, because you got boring, Mark. You used to make me feel something. Lately, it's like you're just there. I swear my body went numb. I don't even remember what I said after that. I just remember her walking upstairs, packing a small bag, and saying over her shoulder, I'll stay with him for a while until we figure things out. Until we figure things out. As if there was still a we. When the door closed behind her that morning, the house went dead quiet. It's crazy how fast a space can lose its warmth. Her coffee mug was still on the counter, half full. Her jacket hung by the door. It looked like she'd just stepped out for a second, except she wasn't coming back. The first 2 days were a blur. I didn't eat, barely slept. I kept checking my phone like some part of me expected her to text and say, "I'm sorry. I made a mistake," but she didn't. On the third day, she finally messaged me. One line, "I think we both need some time to cool off before we say things we'll regret." Cool off? She was sleeping with another man. I stared at the message until my screen went dim, trying to understand how she could be that detached. Then came the kicker. 2 days later, she sent another text. "Can you grab my blue dress and drop it off at Evans? We're going to a wedding this weekend." That's when the sadness turned into anger. Not yelling, throwing things anger. Just that deep, quiet kind that sits in your chest and eats at you. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even hiding it anymore. She'd replaced me, like swapping out a pair of shoes she got tired of wearing. I didn't respond. I didn't drop off the dress. Instead, I boxed up her stuff, everything she'd left behind, and put it in the guest room. That night, Evan's wife, yeah, he was married too, found me on Facebook. She sent me a message that started with, "I think our spouses are having an affair." We spent hours talking, comparing timelines, screenshots, hotel receipts. Everything lined up. The lies, the late nights, even the Luna's Bistro dinner. It was all there. She told me she'd confronted Evan, and he admitted it. Said he was confused, that it just happened. She kicked him out the same night. I remember sitting there after that call, staring at my reflection in the dark laptop screen, realizing that my marriage wasn't struggling, it was dead. About a week after I talked to Evan's wife, Lena showed up at the house unannounced. I was sitting on the couch, half dressed, surrounded by takeout boxes and unopened mail. The knock startled me. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, she was standing there in her gym clothes, hair tied up, sunglasses hiding half her face. She looked calm, too calm. "Can we talk?" she said, like she hadn't detonated our entire life. I didn't answer, just stepped aside and let her in. She walked around like she still lived there, glanced at the half-empty living room like she was assessing damage, then turned to me with this practiced sigh. "I think we need to stop being so dramatic about everything," she said. "We both said things we didn't mean." "We both?" I asked, trying not to laugh. "You cheated on me, Lena. You lied to me for months. What exactly did I say that compares to that?" She crossed her arms, defensive already. "I didn't cheat, Mark. I made a mistake. You drove me away. You've been distant for months. I felt alone." There it was again. The rewriting. Somehow it was my fault that she'd chosen to sleep with a married coworker. I asked, "So sleeping with someone else was the solution?" She rolled her eyes. "I didn't sleep with him." "His wife told me you did." That got her. For a split second, she froze, then said, "She's lying. She hates me because Evan has feelings for me. She's jealous." I just stared at her. It was like watching someone perform a play they'd rehearsed too many times. The same tone, the same fake outrage, all of it rehearsed deflection. Then she switched tactics. She got soft, teary-eyed. "I didn't mean to hurt you, okay? I was just lost. I needed to feel wanted again." That almost broke me, because part of me still loved her, still wanted to believe that maybe she just made a terrible mistake. But the rational part of my brain, the one that had pieced together the texts, the lies, the hotel stays, knew this wasn't about loneliness. It was about selfishness. When I told her I was filing for separation, she dropped the act instantly. "You're seriously going to throw away everything over this? Over one stupid thing?" "One stupid thing," I said quietly. "It wasn't one thing, Lena. It was months of lies. Months of you choosing someone else." She didn't respond. She just grabbed her keys, muttered, "You'll regret this," and slammed the door behind her again. But this time, the silence that followed felt different, heavy but final. The first week after Lena walked out for good was rough. I was running on caffeine, guilt, and whatever energy it takes just to keep breathing when your world's been split open. I threw myself into work, started jogging again, tried cooking actual meals instead of eating cereal straight from the box. It was weird. The little things that hit hardest. Her empty spot on the couch, the echo of her laugh on old videos, the way my phone still lit up with her photo whenever a spam call came through because I hadn't deleted her contact yet. I started therapy. My therapist said something that stuck with me. You're grieving a version of her that never existed, the one who wouldn't have done this to you. That line hit like a freight train because she was right. I wasn't just mourning the marriage. I was mourning the illusion I'd been living in. For a while, it felt like I was actually healing. The nightmares eased up. I reconnected with a few friends I'd lost touch with because Lena didn't like them. I even caught myself laughing again. Then one night, about 6 weeks after she left, I got a message from an unknown number. I miss you. I think about you every day. Can we please talk? It was her. I didn't respond right away. I stared at that message for hours, my heart pounding, all the anger and hurt boiling up again. The next morning she followed up. I made a mistake. He's not who I thought he was. I want to come home. Of course, Evan had dumped her. I found out later through mutual friends that his wife had filed for divorce and taken the kids, and his company transferred him to another branch to avoid HR complications. And now that her fantasy life had crashed, she wanted to crawl back into the one she'd destroyed. Part of me wanted to ignore her completely. Another part wanted to scream, to make her feel an ounce of what she'd put me through. But mostly I just felt tired. So I replied, you made your choice. Please stop contacting me. She called immediately. I didn't answer. Then she texted again. You're seriously going to throw away 8 years over this? That was the last message I ever got from her. About a month after the text stopped, I was sitting in the living room, trying to read, when I heard a knock at the door. My stomach sank before I even saw who it was. It was Lena, standing there, hands shoved in the pockets of her jacket, looking tired and smaller somehow, like the bravado had finally drained out of her. I just needed to see you, she said, almost whispering. I didn't move. I just leaned back against the couch and let her ramble. She apologized. Not a little oops apology, but a long, messy one. She admitted everything. The lies, the texts, the nights at hotels. She even said Evan had been manipulative and that she felt trapped in a fantasy she'd created. I listened. I didn't interrupt. Not because I was calm, I was raging inside, but because I finally realized that my anger didn't need to come out loud. Hearing her admit it, seeing her crumble, was both horrifying and oddly liberating. Then came the twist I hadn't expected. She asked if we could try again, if we could work through this together. I felt that old familiar pull, that tiny spark of hope, but I shook my head slowly. No, I said quietly, we can't. You broke this. You broke us. She looked stunned. Then finally she nodded. I understand, she said, and with that she turned and walked away. I watched her go, and for the first time in months I felt something like peace. Not happiness, that would take longer, but peace. I didn't need to chase her, argue, or prove anything. The truth was out, and I could finally start building my life around it, not around her lies. After Lena left that final time, I realized that I couldn't just drift back into my old routines. The house felt emptier than ever, but that emptiness was also strangely liberating. It was a blank canvas, one I could paint on without someone else's deception hanging over me. I started small. I cleaned the house from top to bottom. Every closet, every drawer, every corner that reminded me of her got sorted, donated, or trashed. It felt symbolic, like reclaiming my space, my home, and my sanity. I threw myself into work even more, but this time with purpose. I wasn't just bearing pain, I was building momentum. I joined a local running club to get some social interaction outside of Lena's shadow and started reconnecting with friends I'd ignored for years because I was too consumed with her. One night I sat alone on the balcony with a bottle of wine and my headphones in, listening to music I hadn't touched in ages. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt. And for the first time since the discovery, that feeling wasn't raw, it was grounding. I also began journaling, writing down everything I had felt, every lie, every manipulation, every heartbreak. It helped me untangle the mess in my head and finally face the reality of what had happened. It wasn't easy. Some days I still caught myself thinking about her, wondering if she'd ever regret it, but I knew that holding on to hope for her meant staying trapped in her world of lies. And I refused that. About 3 months later, I got an email from Lena's work account, professional but personal enough to make my stomach twist. She was reaching out to ask if I could mediate something with Evan for her HR paperwork, since apparently things had gotten messy after the divorce filings. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to throw my laptop across the room. Another part, the part that used to love her, wanted to reply, to say yes, to somehow be pulled back into her orbit. But I didn't. I deleted the email. The next day, I got a text from her personal number. I saw your post on that forum. I just want you to know I'm really sorry. My pulse spiked. Forum? Had she been reading my therapy posts, my venting threads? The part of me that wanted closure almost made me respond, almost made me argue, almost made me forgive. But then I thought about all the lies, all the manipulation, all the nights I had spent sleepless, wondering if I was crazy. I realized something important. Apologies don't erase betrayal. Words don't undo months of lies. So I didn't reply. I didn't read any further. I didn't open any links. I finally started building boundaries strong enough to keep her and her chaos out of my life. Once I stopped engaging with Lena, the weight I'd been carrying started to lift, slowly but noticeably. What really helped, though, was leaning on the people I'd ignored during our marriage. Friends, family, even some coworkers I hadn't felt close to, they all stepped in when I let them. I started going to a weekly men's support group for relationship trauma. At first, I felt stupid, sitting there talking about my wife cheating on me, my humiliation, my rage. But hearing other people's stories made me realize I wasn't alone. It was empowering in a quiet, weird way to realize that what happened wasn't my fault and that it didn't define me. I also started doing things I'd put off for years. I signed up for a pottery class, took weekend hikes, and even started planning a solo trip to a city I'd always wanted to see. Each small step reminded me that life wasn't over just because my marriage ended. I journaled every day, not to obsess over Lena, but to track my own growth. I started noticing patterns, days when I felt strong, days when grief hit hard, and how far I'd come. Eventually, I could think about her without that searing anger or sinking despair. I could think about the lessons learned instead. For the first time in a long time, I felt like me again. Not the husband who had to protect the illusion of a perfect marriage, not the man manipulated by lies, just me. Looking back, it's still hard to believe how fast trust can be shattered. Lena's betrayal cut deep, but surviving it taught me things I never thought I'd learn about myself. I learned that love isn't just about staying together. It's about honesty, respect, and accountability. Without those, it's just a story you tell yourself to avoid facing the truth. I also realized the danger of ignoring red flags. At first, I made excuses for her behavior. She's stressed. She's just busy. Maybe I'm overthinking. That hesitation cost me months of emotional turmoil. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Most importantly, I learned that healing is not linear. Some days I felt strong, independent, like I could face the world. Other days, a simple memory of her would pull me down for hours. That's okay. Give yourself space to grieve, to feel, and to rebuild. To anyone going through something similar, it's painful, it's humiliating, and it's exhausting. But you will survive. And when you do, you'll come out with a clearer understanding of yourself, what you deserve, and how to protect your heart moving forward. I'm not over it in the sense that I can forget what happened, but I am free. And that finally feels like the start of something real. My own life, untangled from someone else's lies.